Surviving Venus isn't exploration. It's a battle against a deadly planet. Temperatures hot enough to melt metal. Pressure that crushes everything within minutes. A sky filled with eternal clouds of acid. And yet, in the 1970s, humanity did not turn away. While most probes were destroyed almost instantly, the Soviet Union tried again and again. They built machines designed not to conquer Venus, but simply to endure it. These were the Venera probes, and for a few unbelievable minutes, they survived Venus. If you could survive only a few minutes on Venus, would you dare to step onto its surface to explore it? Comment below, yes or no, and tell us why. If you love stories about the universe, about the most extreme planets, and the ultimate limits of humanity, subscribe to Nova Odyssey. And join us as we continue exploring the greatest mysteries of the cosmos. Venus looks more like Earth than any other planet. Its size is similar. Its distance is relatively close. But behind that familiar appearance lies a true hell. The surface temperature of Venus stays between 460 and 470 degrees Celsius, hotter than Mercury, even though Mercury is much closer to the Sun. At these temperatures, lead melts and most electronic components fail within seconds. There is no cool night, no moment of relief. On Venus, the heat is permanent. The pressure is even more terrifying. Venus's atmosphere is about 90 times heavier than Earth's. This is equivalent to standing nearly 1 kilometer below the surface of Earth's oceans, except that this crushing force exists directly on the ground. Metal structures bend. Weaker materials collapse almost instantly. The sky of Venus offers no mercy either. Thick clouds filled with sulfuric acid blanket the planet completely. Acid rain never actually reaches the surface. It evaporates before hitting the ground. But the corrosive environment is more than enough to eat away at protective layers and destroy most vehicles flying through the atmosphere. Compared to Earth, the difference is absolute. Earth has liquid water, breathable air, moderate pressure, and changing temperatures. Venus has none of these. No water, no oxygen, no shelter. That is why, when the first probes reached Venus, they did not truly land in the traditional sense. They were thrown into an environment far beyond human design limits. Most survived only a few minutes. Some never managed to transmit any data at all. On Venus, survival is never long-term. To exist, even for just a few minutes, is already a scientific victory. If Earth were to warm by just a few more dozen degrees, would our fate become the same as Venus? The 1970s were not just another chapter in the history of science. They marked the peak of the Cold War, when every technological achievement carried political weight. Space became a new battlefield, a place where every success or failure was watched by the entire world. The United States and the Soviet Union entered the space race with very different goals. The US had already secured a historic victory by landing humans on the moon. That image became a global symbol of technological power and national determination. But while the world's attention remained fixed on the moon, the Soviet Union quietly chose a different path. They chose Venus. Not because Venus was easier, quite the opposite. It was the most hostile planet in the solar system. And that is exactly what made it so significant. If the moon represented a triumph of human exploration, Venus became the ultimate test of machines, materials, and engineering philosophy. The Soviet Union understood that repeating America's achievements would not be enough. They needed a new frontier, one where even a small success could demonstrate scientific superiority. Venus, closer to Earth than Mars and still shrouded in mystery, was the perfect choice. In the 1970s, every mission to Venus was more than a scientific experiment. It was a silent message to the world. The Soviet Union was willing to confront the most extreme challenge the universe could offer. In your opinion, did the Soviet Union choose Venus for science or for national pride? The Soviet path toward Venus was never paved with success. In reality, it was built on repeated failures. Many probes never even left Earth's orbit. Others were crushed by the immense pressure of Venus's atmosphere. Some missions fell completely silent, sending back not a single signal. But what truly stands out is this: the Soviet Union did not stop. Every failure was treated not as an ending, but as a lesson. Engineers dissected every bit of data, analyzed each flaw, and returned with new designs, heavier, thicker, and more resilient. While many nations began to see Venus as too risky, the Soviets saw it as the ultimate test of science and engineering. So why didn't they walk away? Because Venus was no longer just a planet. It had become a matter of national honor. In the context of the Cold War, every space achievement was a statement of power. If the United States had the moon, then the Soviet Union needed a different kind of victory, one in a place no one else dared to go. Venus, with its unmatched hostility, was that place. Conquering Venus did not mean sending humans to its surface. It meant something far more subtle. If even a machine could survive long enough to transmit data, it would prove that the Soviet Union could achieve what the rest of the world feared to attempt. From that moment on, every mission to Venus became more than science. It was a challenge and a declaration. The Soviet Union would not turn away from the most extreme test the universe could offer. If you failed again and again, would you stop or keep going like they did? To survive on Venus, the Soviet Union understood one brutal truth: this planet could not be conquered, only endured. The Venera probes were never designed to last. They were designed to survive just long enough. Each lander was a heavy, spherical shell of steel and titanium, built to withstand pressures nearly 90 times greater than Earth's. Inside, delicate electronics were sealed within insulated compartments, functioning like massive thermal flasks, slowing the inevitable cooking of components as outside temperatures exceeded 460 degrees Celsius. There was no active cooling system, no escape from the heat, only a countdown measured in minutes. In 1970, Venera 7 became the first spacecraft in history to transmit signals from the surface of Venus. It survived for just over 20 minutes. But that brief transmission marked a turning point. For the first time, humanity knew that surviving Venus, even briefly, was possible. Later missions pushed those limits further. Venera 9 and Venera 10 returned the first black and white images from the surface of another planet. The photographs were crude and low in detail, yet they revealed a barren, rocky landscape, shattering earlier theories that Venus might hide oceans or dense jungles beneath its clouds. The peak came in 1981 with Venera 13 and Venera 14. For the first time ever, color images from the surface of Venus were sent back to Earth. The muted hues of alien rocks, dim sunlight filtered through a suffocating sky, and faint wind sounds were captured, all during a short window of just over an hour before heat and pressure silenced the machines forever. The Venera probes did not defeat Venus. They endured it. And in those fragile minutes, they delivered something priceless: the truth. The truth about a deadly planet, and about how far humanity is willing to push the limits of science to reach it. In your opinion, what was the greatest price humanity paid to understand Venus? Many years after the Venera probes fell silent, the true story of Venus began to fully emerge. As Cold War-era documents were gradually declassified, the world came to understand the true scale of the Soviet effort, not a handful of isolated missions, but a long-term scientific strategy spanning decades. The cost of those few minutes of survival on Venus was enormous. Numerous probes failed. Vast resources were consumed. Entire technologies were deliberately sacrificed in exchange for data. Soviet engineers knew they were building machines with no chance of return and almost no chance of long-term survival. Yet, from those losses came some of humanity's most important planetary lessons. Venus was not a younger Earth, nor a world hiding ancient oceans beneath its clouds. It was a planet shaped by a runaway greenhouse effect, where climate evolution had taken a radically different path. The data returned by Venera fundamentally changed how scientists understand planetary atmospheres, surface conditions, and long-term climate evolution. And more importantly, it delivered a powerful warning. Not every planet that resembles Earth will share Earth's fate. In your opinion, what was the greatest price humanity paid to understand Venus? What the Soviet Union left behind on Venus did not end with the Venera probes. The data from those missions became a foundation for modern planetary science. NASA, ESA, and other space agencies built their atmospheric, climate, and planetary evolution models upon what Venera first confirmed through direct measurement. Today, Venus has returned to the center of scientific attention. NASA is preparing missions such as Da Vinci and Veritas. ESA is developing Envision. The goal is no longer to survive for a few minutes, but to understand why a planet so similar to Earth followed such a radically different path. The future of Venus exploration offers no promise of ease, but it promises answers about climate, about the greenhouse effect, and about the fragile balance that allows a planet to remain habitable. From the failures on Venus, humanity learned a lesson that goes beyond science alone. Progress does not come from instant victories, but from persistence in the face of the impossible. And sometimes the machines built to die reveal the deepest truths about the universe and about Earth itself. If you could survive for only a few minutes on Venus, would you dare to step onto its surface to explore it? Leave a comment below, yes or no, and tell us your reason. If you enjoy stories about the universe, about the most extreme planets, and the ultimate limits of humanity, subscribe to Nova Odyssey and join us as we continue exploring the greatest mysteries of the cosmos.